I am so excited to have Sophie B Hawkins, 90s pop diva, here with me. Hi, how are you?
How are you, Meredith? I'm so excited to talk to you and thank you.
Oh my God. And I love that I see the cat tail. I
Her name
love it.
is
Who do
Fella.
we have on Zoom with us today?
Her name is Fella
Oh,
because
wonderful.
my daughter wanted to name, a cat Bella. And I was like, everyone's named Bella. Let's call her Fella.
Fella. I love that. Well, Georgie and Louis Puggle are in the background somewhere, and maybe they'll pop on at some point because I know that you are a huge animal lover and
Yes,
advocate for animal rights, which, we are all about that.
yes, that's great.
Yeah. If I could go back and tell my 15-year-old self in the early 90s, you're going to be interviewing Sophie B. Hawkins in 2024, I probably would have slapped myself and said, stop that.
That's cute. That's
Because you came to the music forefront at a time where there was this huge female movement. I
Mhm.
mean, Joan Osborne, Sarah McLachlan, Jewel, Fiona Apple, so many people were like, competing with coming out of like the 80s sound and the
Yes,
hair bands. And
yes,
then you had grunge and Nirvana and
yes,
Soundgarden. But then
yes,
there was this whole other side to
yes.
the music movement at that time, which was really heavily female dominated. What was it like to be in that, a part of that?
It was amazing. Remember the movie Thelma and Louise?
Yes.
For some reason, that's my image of that time. These two friends get together to help each other, and they're so very different. And the unfortunate part was the end where they had to go off a cliff to maintain their dignity and their friendship and to actually not have to compromise what they had accomplished. And
Mhm.
so they held hands and went off the cliff. And in a way, it's heroic and beautiful. But in a way, I used to feel that we don't want to have to go off a cliff to maintain our friendships and our dignity and our accomplishments. And so I feel though that's sort of no one knew what to do with women and female power in the 90s because it was so clearly stated, as you say, women were I was uncompromising. I remember being in the studio, Electric Ladyland historic studio, recording Tongues and Tales. And I was just saying, this is how we're doing this is the drum beat. I was singing to the drummer. I chose the drummer. I chose the bass player. I chose everybody in the band. And I had become this person. I'm a drummer first. I played every instrument and I wanted to produce the record. Now, we weren't told that we could get producer points or produce. That came later. But
Mhm.
in those days, we were producing the records. We were saying, this is how it goes. And people were happy about it because we were successful. But
Yeah.
then again, the cliff image, what happens after that? And I do think at the end of the 90s, early 2000s, actually, even in 94, there was a backlash going on because, well, let's say 96, 97, because then you had the females coming in again who weren't songwriting their own songs. Because me and Tori Amos, and not everyone you mentioned is in this camp, but me and Tori Amos, Melissa Etheridge,
Mhm.
Sarah McLachlan
Mhm.
wrote all of our own music. We wrote our music and our songs. We were true singer-songwriters, like the Joni Mitchells of the time before. Then it started to be, what's the word? Manipulated, that an artist was just somebody who maybe wrote a couple of lines on a song and had what they called a tribe. So then as women, we were all fighting that tribe mentality where the label started to say, the 90s were great, but now we're in the 2000s or late 90s, and we are answering to, this corporate, these shareholders who are in Japan or wherever, and they want to make sure you can sell records and it's not about the art anymore. And that truly happened, Meredith. That
Mhm.
happened. And that's why in 98, I left Sony. I didn't get kicked off. I left them and I got my master's back because I said, I want to die knowing what I wrote and what I did. And I don't want to write with a friend of a friend of a friend who might play guitar. I don't, I don't want to do
Yeah.
that. Now we're back into female power again in collaboration. So we've come full circle in a way.
It's interesting that you bring up getting your master's back because Was it easier? Do you think it was easier for you to get it back then as opposed to if you did that now? Would you be able
No,
to?
oh my God.
Yeah. Because of the
I
whole,
was
the whole
blacklisted.
Taylor Swift,
Yes.
I had to bring her up because, just what just
She's great.
happened and she just re-recorded everything. She really brought a little bit of light to that it's not that easy to get your music.
No, it was
But
impossible. I had
kudos
to
to
sue
you that
someone.
you did that.
Yes, I did it, and unfortunately, it went. And I say unfortunately for the sake of other artists. In 1998, I sued Sony Music to get my masters back. I didn't ask for anything else. I didn't ask them. I had never made $1 off of them, even though I wrote every single song. I mean, really, it was a horrible. It's all these record labels. The deals were so completely unfair, as Taylor Swift, showed everybody. But at that time in 98, and I don't even know if Taylor Swift was born in 98, but I
She was
was the
born in
only.
89. She was born in
Oh,
89.
okay. So she was 10. So,
She was
who
10.
knows? I mean, we all influence each other, even if we don't know it. We pick up the energy. But it wasn't even just for women, for all artists. When I made that stand, and Billboard supported me, people took sides in the
Mhm.
industry, but it didn't matter who supported me verbally. What happened was I got blacklisted because I was an upstart, but I wasn't really an upstart. I was an artist who said, you cannot destroy the art, you're destroying humanity. And it goes into all activism, animals, the earth. You cannot destroy the true essence of what is beautiful and what inspires us. Otherwise, we will become just unhappy, horrible, mean people. So that's what I was really fighting for. I was fighting for not just me, and actually everyone around me said, you shouldn't try and get your masters back. You should just try to get money and put out this record and get support. And I don't know what I would do now, Meredith, at this age. But then I wanted to take a stand. I thought it was important to take a stand.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, anyway.
I'm so glad that you got those masters back because money comes and goes,
Right.
but that is something that you
That's a
didn't want.
great thing you just said.
Mhm.
And I often, I always, this is a great point for all of us, who are listening or watching or whatever. We think of the things that may have been mistakes and we dwell on them. But sometimes it's good to think of, if I hadn't done that thing, what would my life be? If I hadn't taken a stand, would I be would I have all these things inside that I have now? So that's the way I look at it. Like, I refused to go off the cliff
Mhm.
in Thelma and Louise. I refused. I didn't want to.
Right.
I wanted to keep going as an independent artist. And then now the movement is this way and that way. And now nobody really makes money on records. I mean, Taylor Swift does, but she's one in a gazillion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is a big year for Whaler.
Yeah,
This is a
Whaler,
30-year
hero Whaler.
anniversary.
Yes.
And I want to just mention that, this album was really special. Of course you had Tongues and Tails in 92, but then and it had Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover was the big hit off of that album. But then you had Whaler, which had Right Beside You, Only Love, As I Lay Me Down, and one of my favorites, Don't Tell Me No. I love
Oh, I'm
Don't
so glad you like that song.
don't. So it's, I'm one of those people that had the privilege of being able to have a 5-disc changer in my car when I started driving, and Whaler was one of those discs
Oh,
in
wow.
my car, because I really loved Only Love was one of my favorites.
Wow.
And Don't Tell Me No. But
Yeah.
it is an album that is really beautifully written. And now you're hitting the road and you're doing a small tour. You did a
Yes.
sold out bigger tour in 2019 before the
Yes.
pandemic.
Yes.
But so you're doing a smaller tour. You're coming to Columbia, Maryland, I think on May 29th.
Yes.
And you're starting what, on May 17th and hitting the road through June 1st?
Yes, and the reason why it's small is because I really the time now is to say, hey, Whaler is coming. This is more of an appetizer because we're going to do a bigger tour at the end of this next spring. So the fall, we're going to do the bigger Whaler tour, and of course it has to go to Europe because I made Whaler in Europe. And the thing about
Really?
Whaler is we're talking about independence. Whaler was an album that Sony almost said, we don't want to really release it. You know, Tongues and Tails went gold. You know, you had a top 10 single, but that's not really enough. So they literally said, just move to Europe. We don't, America doesn't get you. First of all, they were wrong. America does get me.
Yes, we
And
do.
I am so American in every fiber of everything I do, you know? And like
Yeah.
really. So but I was happy to go to London because I was so young and I was like, oh my God, go to Europe. Of course I'll go to Europe. So I moved to London. I lived in Hampstead. I made Whaler at the Aquarium with Steve Lipson and Hef Moraes because I loved the Annie Lennox album that had the song Why on it. So I chose Steve and I had the greatest time living in London. I mean, I have to drop the name George Michael was really, we went out to dinner often, considering that we're both, I know, considering that we both were kind of not um, industry people, we were both very similar. We're both writers who had real lives, but we did love each other because of that. And we would talk trash about everybody. It was really fun. He was the only person I ever got to do that with in the industry where I felt safe, you know?
My
And
God, I love him so.
I know, me too. He was so kind, and his friends were so kind, and everyone, you know, you can judge people by the company they keep sometimes, you know. And his friends were so warm and whatever. So I had those days with George, and you know, of course, and I met, you know, you said you didn't know you would ever be interviewing with me. Well, I was invited to Belize by David Bowie. I mean, these were things that all happened while I was making Whaler. It was a time of happiness and joy, and I was away from that crushing attitude of the Sony America, which I
Yeah.
know has changed now. This is the
Yeah.
old days, you know, when it was really kings and, you know, sort of a Napoleonic attitude of just, if you don't like what they're doing, just kill them. That was the attitude. And so many artists suffered from that. So, but
Yeah.
luckily I got ostracized and sent to Europe and I loved it. And Sony Europe was phenomenal. They loved Whaler. They gave me hit after hit after hit. They just kept me on the road. And then Sony America woke up and said, ah, and Sony Europe said, you're missing something with As I Lay Me Down, because they didn't hear it. They didn't. And then they took a chance because there was a little bit of an opening. And then it became my longest running hit single. It's still my biggest supporter of my career is As
Mm.
I Lay Me Down.
Yeah.
So that happened because of me being sent away. And luckily being heard over there and then coming back. So Whaler represents also, like, you know, when one door opens, one door closes, another door opens. It really is a
Mhm.
symbol of that. And the happiness, as I said, the joy of exploration.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that so much. What an
Yeah.
incredible story. And then you come
Yes.
back and you just explode here in the US, and it's just very symbolic in so many ways. Go back for a second because let's go back to Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover.
Yes.
Okay. The original video was banned on MTV. Can
Yeah.
you just dive a little bit into the story of that? Because I don't
Yes.
think everybody knows that story.
Yes. And I just found out, Meredith, I found out the actual meaning of the story very recently. So what happened
Oh.
was it was my very first video, Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover.
Mhm.
And I choreographed it in my apartment. And I was really going off the lyrics, you know, come inside my jungle book, you know, being Mowgli, being sort of a, as I said, an omnisexual or sort of male, female. You know, when you're a kid and you don't really have an identity that's based on gender, it was
Mhm.
more like that mixed with this adult person. And so I wanted to be Mowgli in the jungle. And that was why I put on the cheesecloth. But then I had to cover my boobs because I had boobs. It wasn't like, you know, I wasn't being suggestive. If I had no boobs, I would have loved to have been literally dressed like Mowgli in the Jungle Book. So that was, believe it or not, for all the glamour and the makeup artist who was on the set, I was like, what is this? So putting up the hair and the makeup artist, that was all so, I thought, okay, well, whatever. I never wear makeup. I just put on lipstick for this interview because I'm getting older. But that, the whole issue was I was going to be Mowgli and I was going to crawl around like a tiger and be in the Jungle Book. And these were my jungle friends. And if you look at it like that, you can see that that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was the outfit that banned the video. But then, thinking again, Madonna was doing really racy things. It wasn't the outfit. The outfit might have been ridiculous, but there's a scene where I am having this beautiful dance scene. So I'm gonna really die. We have to look up the name of the dancer. I have it on the tip of my tongue and I don't want to get it wrong. David Arquette? No, I'll get it. He's African American, and I think we're allowed to say black now. And so
Yes.
he's doing this beautiful dance with his fingers on my face, and I'm doing it on his face. And that was a signature of his performance art. He's a dancer. He went to Yale. He teaches now in California at a university. He's like really an amazing person, artist. That's why they banned him, because he's black. And I had no idea of that until literally 3 years ago.
That's unreal.
I know.
That's unreal.
It is unreal, isn't it?
And then you think, look how far we've come. But then at the same time, have we really?
Yeah, I know. The thing about racism is so upsetting. I mean, look at what's going on now, and the whole all the things on campus. It's almost like we've got to move forward and study and change the world by actually changing the world. We
Yes.
can't sit there and yell at. We don't know what we're saying. What
It's
do we have?
horrible.
Oh, the hate.
It's awful. And I'm Jewish and it's really tough to watch all of it. It's
Good for
terrible.
you. And of course, I don't want to offend anybody, but what is
Yeah.
going on? The anti-Semitism is off the charts. And
Mhm.
every time growing up, I always wondered. Anne Frank is my personal hero, starting from 5th grade on when we read Diary of Anne Frank.
Mm.
When I went to Berlin recently to tour, I couldn't even walk up the stairs to her house without each step. It was more and more tears. I was just dying, because I love her so much, and
Sophie.
I grew up loving her,
Yes.
and to see the unedited diaries there in Berlin. So I always, how could this happen? What is it about? How could humans have left? Well, this is how, because people follow, and they
Yeah.
keep all their inner hate and they project it on scapegoats. And I don't know why people can't see that that's what's going on. This is not about Jews. This is not even about Israel.
Right.
This is about a personal grievance that people haven't solved, and they're just joining
Yeah.
the chorus of ignorance.
It's crazy. It's literal craziness.
It's
There was
crazy,
a
but this
whole
is what
article last
happened.
night about one of the big Columbia University protester, I'm not to go on a tangent here, but he's a 40-year-old married man who is the son of millionaire ad execs. He doesn't even go to the it's just the whole thing is just wild.
Yeah,
It
I
is
agree with you.
wild.
And every one of these people, there's so many wealthy people, as you said, who are being so obnoxious. I think they should support all the protesters to go to Palestine and start working. If you want to help the Palestinians, put your money where your mouth is. Get
Yes.
those protesters on a plane, get off and start working for those people, and help those people understand how to educate themselves so they can get rid
Yes.
of Hamas. Why?
Yes.
How,
It's
I
I'm
die,
so
but
thrilled that
people.
you use your platform for really talking about things that you're passionate about. And so I mean, on behalf of so many people, thank you for that.
I can't do it enough though. The hate is so scary.
It
But
is.
really, we do need to get the people who are protesting on the ground in Israel, wherever, we're somewhere in the Middle East, and start helping people. Help
Yeah.
everybody, actually. Just
Yeah.
help anyone who's hurt.
Anyone who's hurt.
Right? Just that's what
Yep.
I want to do. I want to help anyone who's hurt, and I want the hatred to stop. And it
Mm.
is so sickening to me that people
Yeah.
would be anti-Semitic. You might as well be then a racist and say, how can you say kill? It's horrible. I can't even say it.
It's just,
How can
yeah.
you say that? And then you can also say, but we're not allowed, this is illegal. You're not allowed to go around saying, I'll kill you. You can't
Right.
say, a child can't say in school, I want to kill you anymore. Like when we were kids, we could say, I'm so mad, I want to kill you. You actually can get kicked out of school for that now.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
can we allow the protesters to do this?
I know. It's just terrible.
And it's this deep-seated, this, I think people gloat. I think people have a sick, sick sense of people suffering. I
Mhm.
can't stand it.
Yeah. We need more peace and love in this world,
Yes.
and there's not enough of that. So
Yeah.
hopefully
Yeah.
we can spread that through love and music and
Yeah. It's just too much.
it is way too much. Let me ask you, you did a sold out tour in 2019, and then we go into the pandemic, right? And so was that a time for you to really just uh take time for yourself and your family? I know you're a mama, as am I, and really just soak up that time with those kiddos, because I know it's tough for the kids. Or did you really get creative during that? Because um I know that you had an album, Free Myself, come out in 2023. I'm
Yes.
just curious, was Free Myself written during the pandemic, or did you take time and then you did that later on?
Some of it. The pandemic was one of my favorite times ever as a mother. You said a mom,
Mhm.
because I got to be all that time with my children, and it was just glorious for me because part of the way that I mother is by being creative with my kids. So we painted a lot. You know, we were I never wanted that part to end. And it made me really rethink of how I live in society and how much I conform to the pressures. And I do. I'm like everybody, I conform. But I started to unwind it and started to question everything, as we all did. And it did do good for me, the pandemic, as creative. Mostly what I created, though, with my kid was more artwork in the visual sense. And music, I worked a lot on my musical, which is now actually starting to be performed. So I did that, and I worked on my book, and I had a lot of the songs for Free Myself written and recorded, and I did do some after the pandemic. But I didn't, why I didn't release Free Myself was because I didn't have the support. And in the pandemic, I didn't reach out. And I could have. I could have released Free Myself in the pandemic, but I didn't know how to reach out anymore. I was in a different space. And why I share that with you is because, just like probably some people listening, there are times when you're just so, you can't deal with the world, or you can't get into it, or you don't understand it, or you don't fit. I just didn't
Mhm.
seem to fit in the world. And
Yeah.
I allowed that. I allowed myself to be in that space of feeling I don't have a place in the world anymore. But I have a place here in my world with my children. And then I just got into it. So then it was one person by one person. It was like step by step, that when they talk about that, you start with a little thread, and then it turns into a bigger string, and then it turns into a rope, and then you've got this big chain and you're pulling. That's what happened. It was one person said, what are you doing? I said, oh, no, I don't know. Where's your music? I said, I don't know. I have all these songs. I don't know. Like that. And then somebody heard them and they said, wait a minute, these songs are beautiful. What are you not? I said, I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know what to do anymore. That was basically how, and then one person turned into two people. And finally, but believe me, when Free Myself came out, there was no plan. It was a shit show, to be honest with you. And I just had to do it because I couldn't hold on anymore, Meredith. I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. I had to just start. And I knew it wasn't going to go where I wanted it to go, but I'm really grateful it went where it went. And now I feel the opposite space. And why I share that is because I don't want to forget. Right now, I feel I do know what to do. I'm performing my musical on June 25th. I'm doing this little tour. It's going to turn into a bigger tour. I know how to make an album now, a new album. I know how to take my best 22 out of the, 1,000 songs. I know how to do it now. I know how to live in the world. I didn't for a while. And that's okay.
That's okay, because I think many people felt that way.
Yes.
It
Yes.
was kind of this chance, it gave everybody, quite honestly, a lot of people a much needed pause
Yes.
to
Yes.
just take things in. Tell me about this musical.
Oh, You know, I can't talk too much about it, Meredith, but I will. You have to interview me again. But I am
My
starting.
pleasure.
Oh, because so the Whaler is now, but even in and among it, I'm starting to work with actual incredible artists on Broadway, and we're actually going to do a performance, and I will announce that, on the
Okay.
internet. And I know I don't do enough posting and stuff, but it's just not my nature to do it, really. So It will be in the end of June, the 1st, and then we'll like slowly again, that little string will lead to a bigger rope. And we're just going to start with the songs. Like, of course, I have they call it a script now. I used to call it a book. I will start with just the songs and take whichever part of the script, I can, and then it will get bigger and bigger and it will take its time. But I decided, I have a stage. I don't have to even put wait for a theater. I have stages all the time. I could have taken this Whaler tour and made it my musical tour, but Whaler never got its due in the reunion part. What do you call it? The anniversary.
Hmm.
So that's why we're doing that.
That's amazing. And what about your book?
The book is something. I really love that. We're thinking 2026 after the new album.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
I
tell me, is it more of like a memoir? Is it
It is,
a,
it is, it is. It's a memoir based on, and I used to hate that word, but now I'm in love with memoirs. And I read a lot of memoirs that are phenomenal. So I have so many favorite memoir authors. I just read Plant Girl, Lab Girl, which is a great memoir by Hope Jarin. I read what's her name? Deborah Levy. Deborah Levy has beautiful memoirs out there. Anyways, so what I'm doing now is I have about, I can't show you it. There'll be another interview. I
oh,
have
we will do another one. Yeah.
I have in journals. First of all, I wrote the book, and then I wanted to check. So I went back to my journals, and I have journals from 1985, 1980. I have journals from high school, going into music school, going into being the drummer in all these bands, going into songwriting, going into getting signed. I have journals of every single day. And I decided to myself, I had a dream. The dream was that I found all these journals, and this fabulous writer who I love, Sally Wainwright, who wrote Happy Valley, and she wrote Last Tango in Halifax. In the dream, Sally Wainwright told me to go to my journals. So I did. So now what I'm doing is I'm writing, basically taking everything from the journals and being extremely like just quotes from the journals. And then I will bring that into the book. So it's a very truthful, it's beyond truthful. And it's painful for me to do this journal stuff, because as everyone knows who really keeps an honest journal, they're a bitch. They say everything you don't want to read. You don't want to know what you went through. You don't want to know what you really did. It's really awful. But I'm using that to tell the true story, because I feel being a creative person is not glamorous. It's not, being famous is not fun. Even though Taylor Swift makes it look fun, it's not fun. It's so much horribleness. And I want to tell the truth about, how I got to Tongues and Tails, and then how I survived that, and then beyond. I mean, I'm happy now, but it's everyone's life is really difficult, and the life of an artist is usually fraught with incredible rejection. And people, like, it's not to say that I wasn't funny and poetic. I was, and I had a great spirit, and I was always really positive. But the truth of being signed and all that was just awful,
Yeah.
deadly.
Well,
So
I have not added Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover to my playlist yet on my show. I have a national radio show that's on currently 8 stations across the
oh
country.
wow,
Usually I focus on 1970 to 1991 because it's like a yacht rock umbrella, but I
oh
stretch to 92, and I'd like to stretch to 92 and include you. Can you please tell me the writing process so I can put this on the
damn.
show? The writing process for Damn.
So it's there's the musical process that I absolutely remember and I've told this story before, and this is why I was glad I went back to my journals, by the way, because I have Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover. I have it coming out. I see it. Oh my God, there it is in my journal. What happened before is really involved in the terms of the cast of characters who are in my life and what I was going through. And in a way, we have to save that for the memoir because it's too good to be true. And I was working as a coat check, and I was hanging around with Andy Newmark, and we were having this amazing, affair and everything. And Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover came out of all these incredible intimate relationships that were happening in my very early 20s. But the actual physical thing is when my hands hit the piano and my hands were so tired and I went to those chords, you know, I was doing A to D, but then I was so tired that my hand slipped and it went to G. And then I had this gorgeous cluster of chords, and then the music came out. The verse came out because of this state of unconsciousness. And then when I got to that chorus and I was singing Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover, very in that low voice, the background vocals on the track are actually the lead. So when I'm singing, Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover, that was the original lead. And the high voice was really just my little soprano ghosting. And then when I made the recording, live, I had to just belt it out and sing in that very high chest voice, which is really high. But that wasn't the original lead. It was the octave lower. So that's the process technically, is that the emotional process is where all the songs come from, you know, the emotional concoction of what I was going through with my parents and these different affairs, you know. Oh God, my life in Manhattan. And that's what made that song. And when it came out, I knew it was a biggie, but nobody around me liked it. So I recorded it on my 8-track in my room, with my piano and me playing drums and everything. And everyone who heard it, bar none, didn't like it. And there's a passage I read when I was playing it to a manager at the time who I really didn't like. And he just cringed when he heard it. And I was sitting there like this. And I wrote because I was writing in the journal as he was listening, I cannot stand this. I will never play this song for anyone again. I cannot live like this. I do not want anyone to hear my music. He was listening to Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover. And he was like, he said, what did he like better? I like some other song better, Adrian or something that came. And I was just so humiliated.
Wow.
But deep inside, I knew it was a great song, which is again why the memoir is important to tell the truth.
Yes.
You think this is my big song, I've made it now. No way. It was crushing, but I still maintained belief in it, that I will say.
How long did it take you to write Damn?
Probably it takes me about 2 weeks. Like the fullness of the idea comes kind of fast in the beginning. Then the middle is agony because I start to hate it and tear it apart and try to find new things. And then the end is great because I realized, no, you actually had it more in the beginning, but you've made it better. But that process is usually 2 weeks if I can just, if I don't get interrupted. Sometimes now, being a mom, writing a musical, writing a memoir, having paintings that people want to show, I do get interrupted, and that's not bad. That's not bad. I come back to it, and you know, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I always ask people as I'm winding up the interview, I ask everybody that I interview the same question, and some of these answers have been so fascinating that it gives me chills. So take this in as I'm asking. What is your goosey moment, Sophie B Hawkins, when you think back on your career and you think, wow, this is happening. This is a moment that I will never forget. And I have goosebumps all up and down my arms. And even thinking back to it, I still get goosies. What's your goosey moment?
Well, my goosey moment was recently, believe it or not, because even I was gonna say Madison Square Garden when I was doing the Dylan Fest, and I got to be with all those incredible artists, and I got to be on the stage singing "I Want You" and putting my arm around Sinead O'Connor, who was being booed, and all those and backstage and shaking Dylan's hand and hanging out with just everybody. Roseanne Cash, everybody was so wonderful that night. Sheryl Crow was my background singer. That could be my goosey moment, but I'm such an internal person. It doesn't really happen that way for me when I'm in it. My goosey moment was when I had this dream, and it was recently. I was backstage at a Brandy Carlisle concert, and I was stepping over all these people who were crouched, you know, in going to the stage. They were crouched and they were doing things like playing marbles on the floor and everything. And this Puerto Rican woman looked up at me and she said, "You're about to pop." That was my Gussie moment, because I woke up and I said, yes, I'm going to let that happen.
It's awesome.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. And it could be translated in so many different ways. So let's
Yes.
just see. Let's see Sophie B Hawkins pop. Come on, girl. Let's go.
It's so cute. Yeah. You
That
never
is
know.
awesome. Thank you for sitting with me. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure, and we will do this again because we have more to talk about.
Thank you, Meredith. Anytime. I mean, seriously. Take care and please come to the show, will you?
Yes, I will. I will.
Thank